What came first, the chicken or the egg? Sorry, that's the only agriculture joke I know. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about farming. Agriculture has been around for longer than written record has, and it's really kind of shaped the way we view ownership. It's really shaped the way we view using our land, where we travel, those kind of things like that, where we live, all that stuff. So it's really important to mankind as far as that goes. I mean, it's not just food, it's everything. So it's important to our history, and it's important to our future. This is why I think that we should be mindful when we farm, and currently I really don't think that's happening. And I really think that they're kind of unsustainable practices right now out there when we look at industrial farming. So I think that we can make farming a lot better if we just start thinking about it and using certain things to help with that. Now, there's two things that can help with that. There's either changing our farming practices, or we could try to use technology to do that. Let's start off with changing our practices. Health Planet USA has an article called Sustainable versus Industrial Agriculture. One thing they really say about sustainable agriculture is the health aspect of it needs to be sustainable. I know right now that we, even just off the base of farming, let's go to ranching and stuff like that. There's certain ranchers and stuff like that, they will actually go ahead and put antibiotics in their feed and that kind of thing like that. And it's meant to help the animals grow and stuff. But we're seeing that there's some definite benefits to it, and there's some definite downfalls to it. One of the big downfalls to it is we're making superbugs. So if we kind of relate that to farming, we're really talking about runoff and stuff like that. So if we put a lot of chemicals on our food, on our crops, it all runs off somewhere. It all has to go somewhere, and that goes in our waterways. I mean, there's a reason why rivers are rivers, because everything intersects there. So when it rains, all that runoff comes into the waterway, comes into our river, comes into our drinking water, those kind of things like that. And that's one part of the sustainability is to keep that health aspect up. Another aspect of it is just environmental from that standpoint. Now, with the environmental standpoint, we're looking at not only runoff again, because runoff creates a myriad of problems as far as that goes. The other part of that is that we have stuff like topsoil erosion. Industrial farming has a lot of topsoil erosion because they leave their dirt fallow for the year, or they will go ahead and not farm that one plot because they need to bring more nutrients in and stuff like that. So that's causing a lot of stuff like soil erosion. So if we're using our soil more smartly, then we can actually go ahead and stop some of the stuff like that. The other interesting part about that was that I didn't know about before I read this article was that industrial farming actually makes it harder for the water to get down to the aquifer. So like Nebraska has a great huge aquifer underneath of it, and Wyoming specifically needs to give them more and more water. I mean, you can see this in Glendale Lake. Glendale Lake's the last lake, well, I wouldn't say this is the last lake, it's one of the last lakes before actually the Platte River gets to Nebraska. Well, more and more during the August times, we have to let a lot more water out there because we don't have the rights to that water in Wyoming. It just creates an issue more and more. I hear it all the time. The aquifer is actually shrinking under Nebraska, so we have to give them more and more water. The other thing to think about too is species health, and more importantly, I would like to talk about honey bee health. The honeybees have actually had a really bad time recently, and one of the things that we could do with changing our farming practices is to grow more diversity in our crops. And specifically what I'm talking about is wildflowers, because wildflowers actually create nutrients and stuff like that that other crops don't. So that way the bees can stay healthy. It's just like you and me. If we ate one thing all the time, we'd probably be very unhealthy. Something we wouldn't get the same vitamins, wouldn't get the same nutrition from just that one thing as we would having a variety of foods, and that's why we vary our foods as well. So it's, to be honest with you, changing our actual practices is the lower cost solution, and it's also it's an easier solution if people can get their head around it. However, technology might come and save our day anyway. We might be able to stay the course and let technology save us. Technology like genetic modification of crops or animals, or might make farming more sustainable, or digital tools or anything like that. Monsanto is a company that actually their whole bread and butter is genetic modification of crops. And they kind of have a bad rap, and rightly so. They have a little bit of a power trip complex going on because they have a monopoly in this field. So they feel like they could just do whatever, whenever. But the work that they're actually doing is stuff that we've been talking about forever. I know if you look on their website, they actually have a corn maize is what they call it, that actually grows a lot more efficiently in drought areas. So places like Ethiopia, where it's typically really hard to grow corn sometimes, or it just doesn't turn out because they have a drought, and that's very common in that area, they can actually now grow more stuff. And they're saying that even without drought, through this whole time, that they've actually seen a 20 to 35% gain in their grain production in these areas in Africa that are actually growing it. The other thing too that might help is with that honeybee health issue again, but this is more of a technology kind of thing. So they might be able to make an insecticide that helps with the varroa mites. Varroa mites are little tiny insects that stick to honeybees, and they drive them crazy and kill them, and that's one of the reasons why honeybees are actually in danger right now. So that insecticide might help. But the other thing too is that when we talk about the soil, digital tools might help as well. And Monsanto has on their website that they actually have some digital tools to be able to measure how much stuff is in that soil, to be able to better predict whether they can use the soil or not. So maybe they won't have to go fallow for a year, or maybe they will, or maybe they can't grow that here, like they can't grow corn there, but they could grow soybeans there. So that might be a benefit to the farmer as well. There are multiple ways that we can make farming more sustainable to the earth. Through changing our farming practices or using technology, our farming will feed more people and make less impact on the environment. Thank you very much.